I've always been very ambitious in my activities or things that I'm interested in and want to do. And I've never, ever not tried to do something because somebody told me I can't or tried to block me. As a kid, I didn't get allowance for a really long time. But when I finally did get some allowance, like $2 a week or something, which I grew up in Washington, D.C., like you can't do anything with $2 a week. So I was like, well, I can't depend on my parents for the money I need to live my child life. And so I started little businesses in my neighborhood. Like I had a dog walking business, a babysitting business, a weeding business. I made cookies and went door to door selling them all over DC.
That's cool.
Yeah, I basically made my own bank and saved most of it, like half or 75% of it, because I always was like, well, I always need money for a rainy day because you can't count on your parents for that. And then the rest was, going to the movies with my friends or whatever.
Good morning. I'm Stacy Bohrer, and this is Beta Tested, a podcast built on the idea that none of us are finished products. Each episode, I sit down with women willing to talk honestly about ambition, resilience, leadership, failure, because we're all learning and evolving in real time. Welcome to Beta Tested. Let's get to it. Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so glad you're here.
Me too. I feel like I'm so excited for this conversation, and it's always good to catch up with you, any case.
So who are you?
Oh gosh, what a question. I am a female technology leader, entrepreneur, writer, voracious reader, traveler, international person, lots of things, wife.
And your name?
Nola Solomon. Yes, I should have led with that. I'm just an anonymous person with a lot of adjectives attached
with a lot of hobbies. I didn't know you write.
Yes, I write novels. I'm not published yet, but I'm working on it.
Okay, I'd like to dig into that. But first, let's start with a little industry history. You've worked at super influential companies on your resume, and now you're, well, we'll get there, but doing incredible things on your own with partners as well. Some of the companies have been Trade Desk, NBCU, Criteo, AOL, now Entrepreneurship. Looking back, what environments allowed you to thrive most as a woman leader? Is there any trend you saw?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very interesting question because partially you're growing in your career as you're going through these companies, right? So you have access to different people in different rooms depending on the stage. It was less about the company itself, I would say, and more just what phase of life and in my career was I in and the opportunities that I had because of that at the company, but also how I had matured myself in terms of my own sense of self and ability to kind of show up, right, in those ways to have that voice. So yeah, I can't say one company over another because it really is the evolution of your career through these different places affords different opportunities.
So what I'm hearing is there's a correlation between your level of maturity and the voice that you found.
Yeah, and I would say the role that I had at the time at the company, right? And what I was able to influence in that role.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm finding there's obviously correlation in the role, the seniority level, but also there are environments that set you up more to bring the voice out of you. They want to hear what you're saying.
I think in my career, at least, there wasn't any particular ones that stand out one way or the other, right?
I think that's good. I think
that's good. There was definitely benefits to having certain managers that were more behind supporting and getting you to kind of speak out and to support you in the rooms, to ask your opinions when maybe somebody else wouldn't. And then there are ones that aren't really there to grow you. They're just there to manage you. It's a totally different thing.
We're in a very dominated by male space, especially the tech side of our industry. And I'm wondering, did you ever feel pressure to prove your credibility because of that? And I hope the answer is no, but if the answer is yes, maybe we can learn from it.
Yeah, I mean, the answer is yes, obviously, in not overt ways necessarily, especially not on a genderized level, and I do think that women feel this a lot from just the conversations I've had with other women, is you have to you get the sense that you kind of have to work twice, three times as hard, understand something like that much better than your male peer. Because if you do get the opportunity to be talking about it, be the voice in the room, or you're the one being questioned about it, you really want to know your stuff and show that you know your stuff. And so like, it's almost like, prep and studying like homework, in school, where you're just kind of going above and beyond all the time. And so I remember early in my career, especially when you're also building subject matter expertise as well, where I spent, weekends digging through documentation or, reading up every single article that was published about everything in the industry and making sure that I knew what each company was doing and what it meant and how it all interrelated with each other. And I did that partially because of curiosity and a genuine sense of that's just how I operate and like to piece the puzzles together and understand the bigger picture. But also because I felt, a bit of imposter syndrome and a bit of that perfectionist pressure to really know what I'm talking about and, properly learn it, seek it out from other folks that were willing to share as well. Now I can do that more easily, but I still do it. You know what I mean? But it's also just kind of part of the ethos. But I do definitely remember it wasn't pressure from the outside or anyone else per se, as much as it was like the way that I felt I needed to be to show up and actually be taken seriously,
Was that a gender thing or a NOLA thing?
I don't know. It's definitely a NOLA thing for sure. I don't know if it's really a gendered thing because obviously it's a very person-specific type of way of thinking and operating. And I know a lot of other people, both male and female, that operate like that as well. I think there might be an extra layer of pressure that women put on themselves because of the way that society is structured and you're sort of like almost trained to do it, right? From tiny tots on a variety of things. So it's just like, I remember, we see this all the time anyway, and I don't begrudge it or anything, but I just remember it like, men will just go out there and they'll just like say whatever comes to mind or like, shoot off the hip, done no prep. And half the time they're wrong because I know they're wrong because I've done the homework. No one else seems to notice or know or care, even if they are called out, right? Whereas like if I got grilled on something and I didn't really know my stuff, which only happened, a handful of times because I would never let that mistake happen again, I, would maybe get a little look or a little something, you know what I mean?
And then you certainly internalized it if you're anything like me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. I'm definitely like a perfectionist, which I try really hard not to be, but that applies to how I kind of teach myself things.
I didn't know that about you, but the truth of beta tested is the goal to alleviate that feeling of needing to be perfect, because my theory is that women, this is what I see, women tend to aim for perfection and want perfection and check every single box that they think exists before they ask or raise their hand. That's what's different about you. You might be a perfectionist, but you always drive and you lead. So I'm wondering how to reconcile those two things.
Yeah, it's true. It's actually a really good one to hone in on with like the job descriptions, right? Because like, and there's stats on this too, right? In terms of like women need to feel like they not only hit all of them, but are like really confident in most of them. Whereas men are like, oh, if I got one or two, I'm good. Okay, it's like, what?
Like, why aren't I promoted yet? I've been here for 3 days.
Yeah. So it's funny because like, I definitely have that thought, like, especially early in my career, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm qualified for this. And then there was another part of me, and maybe this is I'm like half French, and then the French are kind of like, whatever. Like, I was raised with like 3 sisters, and my mom was very much, a feminist pioneer, didn't finish high school, left home, and then kind of like, got her education in the US while she was raising all of us. And it was sort of just like, just raise your hand and go do it. Just like, go do it. The worst they're going to say is no, but if you don't try, then you're not taking your shot.
That's really cool that she did that. What a model for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially looking back, like as an adult. As a kid, I didn't really get it so much. Obviously I was like, cool, mom's graduating college. Well, I'm graduating middle school. But but like looking back, I was like, wow, like, she really pioneered. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's unbelievable. And maybe it taught you something about resilience too.
Yeah. I've always been very ambitious in my activities or things that I'm interested in and want to do. And I've never, ever not tried to do something because somebody told me I can't or tried to block me. I mean, my parents, it's like a good example, but it's really silly. As a kid, I didn't get allowance for a really long time. But when I finally did get some allowance, like $2 a week or something, which I grew up in Washington, D.C., like you can't do anything with $2 a week. So I even back then. And so I was like, well, I can't depend on my parents for the money I need to live my child life. And so I started little businesses in my neighborhood. Like I had a dog walking business, a babysitting business, a weeding business. I made cookies and went door to door selling them all over DC.
That's cool.
Yeah, I basically made my own bank and saved most of it, like half or 75% of it, because I always was like, well, I always need money for a rainy day because you can't count on your parents for that. and then the rest was, going to the movies with my friends or whatever.
So you paved your own way. Clearly, I think you've always very appropriately marched to the beat of your own drum. And I'm wondering how, was there a moment in your career or your personal life where you realized maybe you were like 5, that you could just be you, raise your own bar and pave your own way? Like, how did you get that confidence to do that then, to do that today?
That's a very good question, because I think confidence isn't like a blanket thing, right? Like you could be very confident in certain areas and not at all in others, right? Partially because I'm a writer. I love stories. I live in La La Land most of the time. And especially as a kid, I preferred reading in my room alone to socializing. My punishment was having to be with people. So I was actually fairly not antisocial, but I wasn't super social. I was a huge introvert. I still am. I still get my energy from and recharge, being alone and all that. But I had a lot of self-confidence challenges with socializing, with being around other people, with understanding how, especially girls, when I was a kid and a teenager, interrelated with each other, made no sense to me whatsoever. I was always friends with boys. They made sense. They were very simple to understand and plug into. Whereas girls, it was this whole chess game. And I was I don't know what this is. I don't feel confident in this world. So I'm going to go to this world, which was the funny thing was that they all wanted to be in the world I was in. And the only reason I was there is because I didn't feel like I fit into theirs.
There's some sort of analogy there to corporate America and politics that exists in the workforce, because that doesn't make sense, even though it makes sense. But I want no part of it. My question was also, you're making me realize, you've lived all over the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where have you been?
Oh gosh. I've lived in London, Paris, Rome, Singapore, DC, New York, and now Charleston, South Carolina.
Wow. As it pertains to gender norms or biases, have you noticed any differences across regions, and did that affect your next move?
Not really. There's definitely cultural norms that are very different, and some of those have a gendered aspect to them, but it was very specific to that culture, and I was not part of that culture. So I always got a little outside it, right, as an expat especially. And I never once felt in my business dealings, other than some, there's always nuanced misogyny that we deal with on a daily basis that, God bless them, they don't realize they're doing.
Well, that's the whole thing. Sometimes we don't even know we're doing it.
Well, true, exactly. And so I think other than that, which is just sort of pervasive for historical reasons as well, I didn't notice anything over. I did get a little bit of people that kind of thought I was too young to be taken seriously. So it was, and maybe laced with female, there was something extra there, but I never really noticed it. Or, it didn't bother me enough where it became something I thought about and acted differently on. The biggest challenge I faced recently being in the last handful of years around all of that, and it's been really US focused, especially in talking or sometimes applying for being in final stages of new large jobs at large corporations that are more historical legacy businesses, I found that very few, but some of the sort of like male senior leaders that are part of the hiring committee have a undercurrent of resentment in what you're asking for in terms of compensation or, scope, because, from a human psychology standpoint, I did my master's in human developmental psychology, was, they spent their whole careers up into their, late 50s to get to where they're at now, and look at me, a, youngish female, like kind of there already, right? So there's some of that. And then, and I do think that it's worth also noting, like, there's a lot of, and I love this, like so much support, female support for other females, male support for females, and just like helping bring each other up. But there is still some like girl on girl crime, to quote Mean Girls, right? There's still a lot of that.
All the time I hear.
And that's what we talked about. Yeah.
And my least favorite thing to hear is, I don't want to report to a woman. From a woman.
Yeah.
And usually I did not get my master's in any kind of psychology, but usually I feel that leader, it's a reflection of her insecurity or trying to be perfect. So she's holding on to everything so tightly instead of empowering their team and letting them scale and innovate.
I think that's definitely sometimes a big part of it and or an element of it. I also think sometimes the culture of the company can have a big impact on who you show up to be at work, especially when you're burnt out, right? Because everything just has a darker lens to it, and your patience and your tolerance for things is just so much smaller, and you're feeling the pressure and the fear, right? It's always about fear fundamentally, because we're animals at the baseline. And that can really exacerbate that from a senior leadership standpoint. But I also think similarly, like the younger generations or those that are in the cohort reporting up into the female senior leader sometimes will resent because they want to be there, right? And instead of, oh, how aspiring, let me get mentorship or whatever, it's how do I take you down because that's going to somehow help me get there faster?
Or you're going to make me look bad, or there can only be so many of us at the table, and therefore it should be me, not you. And I'm like, oh my God, we're getting it wrong.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And there's a human element to that too. It's not all like, gendered, but I have experienced that firsthand. Yeah.
Okay. Switching gears. You have done a lot of incredible work in your career. You've led teams in strategy. You've led teams in partnerships, communication,
commercialization and
product. There's something as AI becomes more prominent, everyone's talking about EQ or becoming a plumber. But what are some of the skills? I'm like, oh God, I can't do that. What are some of the skills you think women uniquely bring to the table that are an added value to an organization?
I think two things. One is we are conditioned from youth to just take on a lot and deal with a lot of burden, of pain, physical, mental, all of it. And it's like our thresholds for tolerance of that is just what I've seen far higher than most men's, right? Like, I love my husband, but he can be such a baby when he's sick. And I'm like, dude, you have literally no idea the things that I go through. Like, none. And I don't complain about it. Anyway, but more seriously. So I think there is just a level of like, we are conditioned to have we're calloused over, right? So we can tolerate a lot more, which is not necessarily a good thing. It's just the way that it is. And the other thing I think that is different is, we come at business and leadership with a feminine mindset, meaning we have a frame of reference that is different from a male frame of reference innately, right? Just like somebody from a different culture would have a different frame of reference from, someone from a different culture. But it's really valuable to think about. We think a lot about other people and about how things will kind of like, what are the ripple effects of some of the stuff that we're doing or thinking about into like, not call it total future tripping, but just like consider the things around the main thing, or the things even outside, the layers outside that, if this isn't getting too philosophical, And I do think that that's something that we innately do a lot of because we are often feeling in the ripple effects or the second or third ring out, right?
To your point about middle school,
Yeah.
like it's just more complex. We have a muscle that thinks about how this person's going to react and then what's going to happen. And then
Yeah, right. But going back, you can't solve every problem. And sometimes you just need to like just go and hope. But, I do think that we bring an extra innate layer of that that just is a little bit more intuitive. And that manifests, in a variety of ways. Obviously, in the boardroom, it manifests in terms of some of the decisions that get made in our advertising industry around, certain like creatives that run that, oof, that was how did that get approved to run? Like, it's misogynistic, like what this, or whatever. Anyway, so I do think we can bring something extra to the table with that.
okay. I think you're right. I know you're right. And it's time to have a woman be president. Okay. We are rounding third, but I have a few more questions I want to ask you if that's okay. Okay. A lot of women are concerned they're not technical enough as AI becomes first and foremost in boards are asking, who's using it? Who's not? How are you becoming more efficient? What advice would you give the woman, I'm not saying any names, who worries she's not technical enough? Like stats say, and I don't know them off the top of my head, but men are leaned into AI so much more than women. And I don't like that. Any reaction or advice that you might have?
Yes, on all of it. So, one, I would say I never considered myself technical either. I still don't really consider myself technical, although I can be dangerous technically because I taught myself to be, right? Through just reading and learning and trying things and talking to people who are more technical and kind of being, quite frankly, sometimes brave enough to be like, I don't understand that. Do you mind putting it in layman's terms or explaining it in a different way? Because even if it's a way for me to understand it and visualize it in my own head, that's the value, right? I can now understand how the entire programmatic ad ecosystem works down to pretty granular nuances technically, but it's because I see it. It's like a machine working in my head and I see all the cogs and I understand what they all do. And and some of that's built with time, but it's also because you learn it. And so I think, look, human beings are very smart species, male or female, right? So everyone has the capability to learn enough technically to be dangerous or even to become fully technical if that's what you want to do. But it goes down to what are you passionate about? What really interests you, right? And that's where you're going to focus your time and effort on some levels, which is why I think a lot of women don't consider themselves technical because that's not where they potentially are the most interested because that's where you need to spend time to be, learning it, especially down to the levels to be able to actually take and write code and do all the, the management with AI. That you seem to think everyone else is doing. But here's the cheat sheet. Just ask Claude. Literally. Or ChatGPT if that's your preference. I prefer Claude. But I oftentimes I don't understand what that means. Put this again in layman's terms. How do I think about the pros and cons of what you just said and what are alternatives and why should I think about this tool or this way of doing something technically better than this other way of doing something technically in plain English, right? And so you don't need to learn, especially today, you don't need to learn how to write code. You need to learn how to be smart enough to question what the AI is doing and prompt it as best you can and then have small use cases and be patient and build your skills like building blocks. So I think, it's really democratized the access to understanding technical concepts. But you again, like anything else, you just have to ask it to guide you the way that you learn best.
But you're making me think of correcting you, which is it's not that easy. It is easy to use a platform like Claude, but you still have this innate curiosity where I picture you digging and digging and digging and digging. And that's you. You did that. You are confident and brave enough to ask the hard question, which then leads me to my next question, which is how did you become so brave? And when you are afraid, which we all are constantly afraid, The difference is doing it anyway. How do you get yourself to take one foot in front of the other?
Yeah. I've asked myself that question. I think there's a very like poetic answer and then there's like a real answer. Well, they're both real, but so the poetic answer is my grandfather, who was a self-made man, grew up in the Great Depression and total poverty, and then built all these businesses and sold them and kind of, truly made something of himself. He told me when I was still pretty young, he was like, never let fear drive a decision, ever. So if you're afraid of something, it's best to understand why you're afraid of it, like get to the bottom of it. And then don't let that be the reason you don't do it. Take the risk of jumping into the job that you don't think you're qualified for, but somehow somebody's offering it to you or whatever it is, right? So that was definitely something that stuck with me. And I think about almost like a mantra, right? That I always go back to, especially in moments where I do feel fear paralyzing me, even sometimes over really dumb little things. And then I would also say that like, I'm maybe like too ambitious for my own good on it. Like I just want to win for whatever it is, the thing I'm trying to do so badly that like nothing's going to stop me from trying.
I love that so much. What your grandfather said was really memorable. I will not forget that because it's a good gut check every time you're afraid. Like reminder, that is, you're allowed to not do things, but it can't be because of fear.
Exactly. Can't be because of fear.
Last question. Hardest question. What's something you are beta testing right now in your personal or professional life?
Oh gosh, so many things actually. But the one I'm really excited about, because I think it's going to change the game, because I'm also somebody who values efficiency very, very much, because I have so many things I want to do and I only have so many hours of the day. And so AI is amazing, right? Efficiency, I can do more things. I am building myself an AI assistant, Nola AI. Yeah. Like give me an app on my phone that I direct to do a variety of everyday tasks that will then evolve into more complex, even business-oriented things. So things as simple as grocery shopping, grocery lists, and what we did, and share that with my husband so that we can, regardless of who goes to the store, we always know what we need and get that done. I have, business ideas and book ideas all the time while I'm running or out and about, just having those logged in a place with like all the like pieces of information, all from just talking to my Nola AI app. And, you can extrapolate to tons of other like day-to-day things that happen to me, almost like admin things that I just do every day, just chatting with my app, and then it's all getting logged, it's all getting done. Or it's like, okay, I want to have, by the time I get home from my run, I want to have a whole business strategy with a research portion on this like, business idea that I have to understand if it's viable. I continue my run, I get home, and it's there.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So what's the last step before GA?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm still like in the early stages of playing with it. So right now I'm hooking up Telegram to Claude using this AI builder within Telegram that's called BotFather. So I'm working on some use cases through the Telegram, so at least that like cuts it, and then having it on not on local storage or in the cloud, but in sort of more of a database structure, so that you have one source of truth, and regardless of front ends or platforms, like you don't need to hold multiple copies of things. So I'm working through that flow, and then
That's
once I get
big unlock.
Big unlock. And, for the cost of what, like $30 a month or something like that. And on one use case flow, which I'm kind of pioneering the grocery example because it's very simple, but also very, very useful, is then once that flow is there and I understand how all those connectivity pieces work, I'll be working on making it more of an app. So I don't need to open Telegram to do the thing. I can just have my app and everything's hooked up and we're off to the races.
Well, I learned more than one thing, but one thing for sure is I'm buying you a drink in France. Will you be there?
Yes, I will.
Because I liked you before, I love you now. Thank you so, so much. You're intriguing, you're brilliant, and you're really kind, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you so much, Stacy. And back at you, and I really look forward to hanging out and can.
I will follow up and solidify a date.
Yes. Oh, okay.
All right. I'll talk to you later. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye.